But when I compared this with animal agriculture, raising livestock just in the US consumes 34 trillion gallons of water. And it turns out the methane emissions from both industries are nearly equal. Living in California, a state plagued by drought and water shortages, water use is a major concern for many of us.
The average Californian uses about 1,500 gallons per person per day. About half of that is related to the consumption of meat and dairy products. So meat and dairy products are incredibly water intensive, in part because the animals are using very water intensive grains. That's what they eat. And so all of the water embedded in the grain and that the animal eats essentially is considered part of the virtual water footprint of that product.
I found out that 1/4 pound hamburger requires over 660 gallons of water to produce. Here I've been taking these short showers trying to save water, and to find out just eating one hamburger is the equivalent of showering 2 entire months. So much attention is given to lowering our home water use, yet domestic water use is only 5% of what is consumed in the US versus 55% for animal agriculture. That's because it takes upwards of 2,500 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of beef. I went on the government's Department of Water Resources Save Our Water campaign, where it outlines behavior changes to help conserve our water, like using low-flow shower heads, efficient toilets, water-saving appliances, and fix leaky faucets and sprinkler heads, but nothing about animal agriculture. When I added up all the government's recommendations, I was saving 47 gallons a day. But still, that's not even close to the 660 gallons of water for just one burger. I wanted to see if I could somehow talk with the government about this. Just calling to see if we could schedule an interview.
Yeah, that would be good. What does your schedule look like this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon?
Tomorrow afternoon could be good.
For the urban environment, there are a lot of things that can be done. Indoor, using low-flow shower heads, low-flow faucets, efficient toilets, efficient water using appliances. All those are really good areas that can help quite a lot. But the biggest water savings is from outdoor.
We have to be mindful of the way we use water. We have to use it as efficiently as possible. We have to protect its quality, and we have to be good stewards of the environment that depend on water.
And checking the sprinklers. A lot of time we get a lot of leaks and broken sprinklers and things like that that wastes water. And those are the areas that there's a lot of room for conservation.
It kept on coming up. A lot was of animal agriculture. Can you comment on that at all, about how much that plays a role in water consumption and pollution?
That's not my area.
There's one study that found that 1 pound of beef, 2,500 gallons of water.
Yeah.
Eggs is 477 gallons of water, and cheese almost 900 gallons. I mean, I guess it's one simple, why isn't it on Save Our Water? Just, it's kind of like if you went to someone's house and my neighbor has a faucet, dripping, and then you see this giant hose turn full blast until 660 gallons of water are shooting out into the street, flooding the entire street. I think I would say, hey, turn that off, please. It seems like it's a huge thing that we could be doing by far more than anything else. Just like, if that is really the case.
I think that the water footprint of animal husbandry is greater than other activities. There's no ifs, and, or buts about it.
That would be really powerful, just rather than waiting till we're in a drought. What do you think about just starting now, and whoever's in charge of the Save Our Water, hey, let's start encouraging people to eat less meat now, because these studies are coming out.
I don't think that'll happen.
Why?
I don't think that'll happen.
Why?
Because of the way government is set up here.
That's interesting, though. Why though?
One is water management, and the other one is behavior change.
Behavior of taking showers and not watering your lawn and doing all that, that's behavior.
Yeah.
Wow. Clearly the government did not want to talk about this issue. Their inability to answer, along with the environmental organization's silence on the topic of animal agriculture, made it seem something more was going on. I started doing more investigating on the impacts of livestock and found out this situation was actually worse than I had thought. In 2009, 2 advisors from the World Bank released an analysis on human-induced greenhouse gases, finding that animal agriculture was responsible not for 18%, as the UN stated, but was actually 51% of all greenhouse gases. 51%. Yet all we hear about is burning fossil fuels. This devastating figure is due to clear-cutting rainforests for grazing, respiration, and all the waste animals produced. This makes animal agriculture the #1 contributor to human-caused climate change. But not only that, I found out raising animals for food consumes 1/3 of all the planet's fresh water, occupies up to 45% of the Earth's land, is responsible for up to 91% of Amazon destruction, is a leading cause of species extinction, ocean dead zones, and habitat destruction. Yet, the world's largest environmental groups that are supposed to be saving our world didn't mention this anywhere. I had to speak with environmental organizations to find out why they weren't addressing this issue. I sent off dozens of emails, made call after call, spent hours on hold. Days became weeks and weeks became months, and for some reason, no one wanted to talk to me about this. So bizarre. I supported these organizations for so long and now was met with silence. I was, however, able to connect with a handful of environmental authors and advocates that were willing to address this issue. I took my old trusty van, Super Blue, out of retirement and hit the road.
So my calculations are that without using any gas or oil or fuel ever again from this day forward, that we would still exceed our maximum carbon equivalent greenhouse gas emissions, the 565 gigatons, by the year 2030, without the electricity sector even, or energy sector even factored in the equation, all simply by raising and eating livestock.
If you reduce the amount of methane emissions, the level in the atmosphere goes down fairly quickly and within decades, as opposed to CO2. If you reduce the emissions to the atmosphere, you don't really see a signal in the atmosphere for 100 years or so.
The single largest contributor to every known environmental ill known to humankind: deforestation, land use, water scarcity, the destabilization of communities, world hunger. The list doesn't stop. It's an environmental disaster that's being ignored by the very people who should be championing.
Free-living animals made up, 10,000 years ago, made up 99% of the biomass. And human beings, we only made up 1% of the biomass. Today, only 10,000 years later, which is really just a fraction of time, we human beings and the animals that we own as property make up 98% of the biomass. And wild, free-living animals make up only 2%. We've basically completely stolen the world, the earth, from free-living animals to use for ourselves and our cows and pigs and chickens and factory farmed fish. And the oceans have been even more devastated.
Concerned researchers of the loss of species agree that the primary cause of loss of species on our earth that we're witnessing is due to overgrazing and habitat loss from livestock production on land and by overfishing, which I call fishing, in our oceans.
And we're in the middle of the largest mass extinction of species in 65 million years. The rainforest is being cut down at the rate of an acre per second. And the driving force behind all of this is animal agriculture, cutting down the forest to graze animals and to grow soybeans, genetically engineered soybeans to feed to the cows and pigs and chickens and factory farmed fish.
91% of the loss of rainforest in the Amazon area thus far to date, 91% that's been destroyed, is due to raising livestock.
The leading cause of environmental destruction is animal agriculture.
I just couldn't understand why the world's largest environmental organizations were not addressing this when their entire mission is to help protect the environment.
But that's the thing too, is they say, use less coal, ride your bike. What about, eat less meat?
Yeah. I think they focus grouped it and it's a political loser.
In terms of, yeah, because they're membership organizations, you know, a lot of them. They're looking to maximize the number of people making contributions, and if they get identified as being anti-meat or challenging people on their everyday habits, that's something that's so dear to people that it will hurt with their fundraising.
They do not want to address the primary driving cause of environmental devastation, which is animal agriculture, because they're businesses and they want to make sure that they have a reliable source of funding.
I went invited to a meeting with Al Gore and some years ago now, and made these methane arguments, and he was really pushed back. And that's just his argument. It's hard enough to get people to think about CO2. Don't confuse them.
I think that the problem with a lot of organizations that are focused and have a laser focus don't go off message because they don't want to piss off another whole group of people that will make their lives difficult.
If you listen to the majority of the major environmental organizations, they're not telling you to do much besides live your life the way you've been living it, but change your light bulb from time to time, drive less, use less plastic, recycle more. It's better for their fundraising and better for their profile to create a victim and perpetrator sort of plot line.
You know, it's like when we talk about the fact that when we have a dysfunctional family and the father is an alcoholic, that's the one thing no one talks about. Everybody goes around that, and yet it's the one thing that's causing the devastation in the relationships in the family.